Hi, my name's Haley Gustafson. I'm a sophomore at Southern, and I'm a communication disorders major. And 7 months ago, my grandfather passed away due to a heart attack.
My name's Justin Emmons. I'm a sophomore at Southern Connecticut. My major is exercise science, and 2 years ago, I lost my father to cancer.
Hi, my name's Emily Quayle. I'm a sophomore, a marketing major, and my mom passed away from lung cancer when I was 6 months old.
My grandfather, who I called my Pepe, which is French for grandfather, he was probably one of the most important men in my life, almost as important as my dad. Him and my grandma raised me since both of my parents worked full-time jobs, and whenever I needed anything, I could go to him. And he was always there for me. Whenever me or any of my cousins needed a ride, he would drop whatever he was doing. He was there. If I needed someone, I called him.
My father was very outgoing. He was a very avid sports lover. He was big Mets fan. He would always take me to Mets games and Rangers games. He was never shy and always cracked jokes. And he had a very good sense of humor.
Since I was only 6 months old when she passed away, most of the stuff I know about my mother comes from all my siblings and other related family. I do know that she had a great sense of humor, and I'm told that I get that from her, and I look just like her. So I know she was a really hard worker, and one of her favorite things to do was collect vintage Coca-Cola products.
On September 23rd, I was at school and just on Facebook doing my thing, and I came across a post on one of our town's pages saying, why are there so many ambulances on such and such street? And I was like, wow, my grandparents live on that street. So I called my grandmother, my Pepe, and their home phone to see if everything was fine or what the commotion was, and no one answered their phones, which isn't out of the ordinary. So I called my mom just to make sure everything was fine. She told me everything was fine. They're probably driving or busy. And then about a few hours later, my mom called me to say that my grandfather was in the hospital and he had a massive heart attack, and my dad was going to pick me up at school to bring me to the hospital to see how he was doing. So my dad picked me up and we drove to New Britain General, and when I got there, I walked down to the ICU by myself, and I knew it was a serious situation, but you never think someone's going to pass away. And my mom came out to the waiting room, and she looked upset but not shaken, and I was like, can I go see him? Can I talk to him? I was excited to see him because I wanted to make sure he was okay, and she started bawling her eyes out and was like, he's not gonna make it. And I was just in complete shock and a state of disbelief, this wasn't happening to me or my family. He was a perfectly healthy guy. He was mowing his neighbor's lawn, and he just collapsed, and no one knew what happened until we got to the hospital. And when I saw him, he was unresponsive and completely out of it, and it was scary to see him like that.
So on June 8th, 2013, I was working at a restaurant when my Uncle Carl tapped me on the back of my shoulder and said, come on, bud, we gotta go. Your dad's in the hospital. And I didn't know why. He'd be going through treatments. I saw him earlier that day, and I thought nothing of it. And then when I arrived at the hospital, it turned out he had just passed away 30 seconds before I got there, and all my family was there.
My mother was actually pregnant with me while she had cancer, which explains why I was so young when she passed away. The day she passed away was April 18th, 1996, and my sister actually found her in the living room. She went downstairs to just do her usual checkup on her, and she decided to do a couple things extra before because she figured she would be okay. So she waited an hour after the usual time that she would check on her, and at that point she had passed away. And it was really hard on her because she didn't want to be the one to find my mom like that, and besides me, she was the youngest of our family. So that took a lot out of her.
I feel that my outlook on the meaning of life has changed dramatically since my grandfather passed away. I feel that while he was alive, I took a lot of little things for granted, I would probably see him 4 or 5 times a week, and he would stop over just to get something or fix anything around the house, and I would just be like, "Hi Pepe, bye Pepe." And I felt like I never really sat down and talked to him, and I wish that I was able to do that, and I wish I did. And now, like, when I see people that I don't really see a lot, I like try to take the time to spend time with them and talk with them, because you never know when like the last time you're going to see someone is.
Experiencing a death of a loved one, I think, definitely changes your outlook on life as a whole. Before my father passed, I thought we're all put here for a certain reason, and just God's got a plan for everybody. Like, live it till you die, obviously. Like, what else are you gonna do? But when my father passed away at such a young age, I realized that you got to do as much as you possibly can in the time period that you got, just to make the best out of life.
Because I've experienced such a close loss, I feel like my outlook on life is a little different than other people. From growing up without a mother, I've noticed that the way I want to live my life and carry myself is to do things that I know would make her proud of me. And I know that it's really important to live every day like you might not get the next, because life is really valuable. And although she passed away over a long-term disease that she had, anything can happen at any given moment, and you want to make sure that the people close to you know that you love them.
After losing one of the most important people in my life, I feel that I also view death differently. Whenever I see an ambulance passing by, I take a moment to think about whoever's loved one's in there, because it could be my loved one and I would never know. I never knew my grandfather was being transported in the ambulance that he was. I also feel like I go to church more after I lost him, because I feel like I could pray and just be connected with him in a different way. I also feel like I could empathize with people who've also lost a loved one. I know how hard it is and how hard the grieving process is. And other people that haven't lost a loved one mostly think that grief happens right after the loss and then you're done. But grieving is a process that lasts a really long time, and you never know when it's going to happen. It like hits you all at once, and I don't think people realize that. So I try to be like thoughtful to other people who've lost a loved one, because it could happen years ago and it's still hard years later.
My outlook on death after experiencing the loss of a loved one, I think, kind of remotely stayed the same. Before I lost my father, I thought that death was just basically God saying that he needed you now and your time was up. And when I lost my father, I realized that he'd been sick for a while, and God was probably just taking him off this earth to relieve him of his pain and bring him to a better place.
I perceive death in a way that it's really hard if you lose someone close to you, or you have a friend who you see loses someone close to them. But my advice would be, if you have a friend who loses someone close to them, the best thing to do is to just be there for them for whatever they need. Everyone copes in their own way. And I feel like experiencing a loss on my end, I've experienced other losses in my family, and I feel like it helped me deal with those better, because I could tell that growing up without a mom, it was really hard. But at the same time, I know she would be proud of me, and I know that I have an angel up there. So I know that if someone dies of an illness, then they're in a better place because they're not suffering anymore.